Order! Order! You are an incorrigible delinquent at times. Behave yourself, man!
I've been going out with a girl, her name is Julie, but last night she said to me when we were watching telly.
A reminder now of our main story this evening. Theresa May says she intends to go back to Brussels to renegotiate her Brexit deal, but EU leaders say the deal is done and they will not reopen talks.
It is the night of May the 16th, 1943. In all the skies of Europe at war, one squadron only is flying.
Enemy coast ahead.
Their task, to breach the great dams of the Ruhr Valley. Tonight, they are 617 Squadron. Tomorrow, the world will know them as... You are with the Dambusters in action, boring at treetop height into the heart of the Third Reich. The human drama which preceded this incredible raid reveals the inspiration and obsession of one man with an idea.
Gammon, noun, derogatory, believed by some to be a slur. According to one former aide to Jeremy Corbyn, it denotes a condition that once manifested itself as an affinity to UKIP, but now more so to high blood pressure and a red meat complexion. Boldness is optional.
In the matter of Brexit, our politicians have not merely failed to bring the people to understand the crucial issues at stake, they have given us a false picture. Brexit is presented primarily as a matter of economics, rather than a struggle for freedom from bondage to a dictatorial continental oligarchy. We've been given a picture of a negotiation between friends and partners. We are in fact at war.
Yes.
What is war between states? It's a struggle for domination of one state over another. Yeah. And now we're involved in a one-sided war in which our enemies abroad and at home are winning while we are in shameful retreat. It was reported last week that Michel Barnier, chief European negotiator, said he would regard his task completed when he'd inflicted sufficient pain on the British to make us decide not to leave the EU. These are not the words of a friend.
No.
These are the words of an enemy.
Yes.
Intent on our defeat.
Yes.
If we are to avoid this defeat, we must make a fundamental change in our approach and in our underlying assumptions. We shall need powerful, inspired and inspiring leadership. Equally, we shall need unity and a readiness for sacrifice among all of those who care for our freedom.
The European Union has spent £8 million plus on the village of some 5,000 people. But alienation from the EU and the Westminster bubble is strong here. The borough voted leave 70%, but economists say that if a hard Brexit happens, places like this will be hit badly. You can't visit Grimethorpe without popping into the Working Men's Club. When Harry met Danny, it was down the pit back in 1958. Today they're putting Brexit to rights. Yeah. Brexit, how did you vote in the referendum?
I voted to stay.
Remain?
Remain, yeah.
I voted to leave.
Why, have you changed your minds now?
No.
No.
So some people say that one of the reasons they voted for Brexit was they were worried about immigration.
Yeah, and that was the main thing round here.
There's that many different immigrants and different people that live in big cities and places.
But there's been that for years.
No, I know, but it's
I travelled to Nottingham.
You're just going too much. They're taking kids' jobs. Jobs were going.
No, they're not. Them kids won't tell them.
Oh, well. We fought in the Second World War. We liberated France. We liberated Belgium. We bet the Germans. And what we're getting now, trying to tell us what we can do, what we can't do.
I'm pleased to say that Professor Kate Williams joins me, historian, author, TV presenter and expert tweeter, because it was a tweet. Kate Williams, good afternoon to you, by the way.
Good afternoon.
It was a tweet you sent last night and a thread that developed around it that prompted my idea today to talk about Britain's greatness and the kinds of things that are said often in conversations around Brexit about what we are or were great at and what was or will be great about Britain. Again, you focused on the war, Second World War. Tell me why.
Well, I focused on the war because there was a gentleman interviewed by BBC Newsnight who doesn't stand alone in this. I think there's a lot of conversation around this in which he was saying that the reason why Brexit is fine is because, as he put it, we beat the Germans, we liberated France, we liberated Belgium. And what I was saying is that this is a very pervasive view in the public imagination. And a lot of politicians say it as well. This sort of idea that Britain won World War II and really on its own, with excluding the support of the Empire soldiers, of Australia, of the Commonwealth, excluding the Russian front, in which, you know, the majority, we might argue the majority of Hitler's soldiers were fighting in the Russian front, the work of the occupied populations in France and Belgium, excluding all the contributions, huge amounts of contributions to what was indeed a world war. It really was a world war. And forgetting all of this, you know, there's been lots of conversations about the Polish aircraft fighters. So this idea that we won, we beat the role of the USA, we won, we beat them, I think really excludes how much we rely on others, how important Britain's contribution was. Important, of course it was, and vital. But so were those of others, and many of those who we now seem to try and be separating ourselves from as enemies. And so that really concerned me, and I do feel that it is partly the role of the role of historians to try and engage with this. Why have we got this story in the public imagination that is being repeated, and now it is being used to bolster the fact that to bolster the ideas of leave voting? We'll be fine to leave. It's fine to have no deal because we beat the Germans. When obviously, I mean, I personally didn't. Very few people who were involved in the war are still alive, and our answer, you know, it's a very different. That was it's a completely different world now. Then now it's completely false equivalency. But also, the war was not simply. We would not have won the war by ourselves.
We're done, and certainly not without America involvement, and as you mentioned, all the other European allies in the years before that. I mean, the death toll speaks for itself in a sense, doesn't it? It is not to detract for 1 second from the British sacrifice and effort, not for a moment. But 800,000 combined US-British deaths, 27 million Russian deaths.
Yes, exactly. As you say, the death toll is huge, and I think we are beginning to look more at the role of Empire soldiers. We're beginning to look more at there's more awareness of Empire soldiers. Certainly there's been a bit of increasing awareness of Empire soldiers in World War I and in World War II and Commonwealth soldiers. But really, the fact the contribution of allies and the Eastern Front, Romania, Eastern Europe and Russia, really, there are many arguments that it was Russia that conquered Hitler, not us and Churchill. Yes, we held firm, but it was Russia in its place. And so the fact is that if we continue these narratives, and politicians are fond of turning up, repeating these narratives as well. If we continue these narratives, they're damaging in so many ways. They're not only a complete misrepresentation of history, they're also really giving ourselves a false independence and exceptionalism. We're not that great,
and we're not that great. That'll get people going.
It was a great and important contribution, but simply the fact that one tiny country could win World War II on its own, that is the idea that has been held down, and it's just not the case. And it's very interesting because I was looking at some other newspapers and how they're seeing Brexit in Europe, because of course it's being figured here so many ways about, we won the war, so it's fine, we'll leave in its order, and the no deal will be just like the Blitz, when we forget that the Blitz was a highly organised there was a lot of civil organisation around the Blitz to ensure that things proceeded smoothly, and there was very careful, and rationing was very careful system to ensure that everyone that food was carefully managed. We forget all of that, if we do this vision that is being really portion of the public imagination, a far too simple vision, is really, I think, is a problem.
I've got a caller, Andy, who's angered by what you're saying. Are you happy to have a brief chat with him?
That's fine.
Okay, Andy in Chessington, hello.
Hello, Sheila, good afternoon.
What are you angered about, Andy?
I'm angered. It's a major point, and that is, of course, it was a world war, and there was a lot of sacrifice by a lot of people. But only one country stood alone against Germany at the start of it all. One country. And that wasn't Australia, that wasn't America, that wasn't any of the other lists that's been mentioned. It was Britain, and it was around Britain that the other nations galvanised. It was not us galvanising around Australia or India or all the other important efforts, the Polish pilots that have been mentioned. Of course they did that, and they should be honoured and have been. But it was Britain that stood alone, and that, I think, needs to be absolutely emphasised.
Kate?
Well, Britain stood alone, we would argue, when it does stand alone, it stands alone with the huge resources of an empire that it collected through so many ways of oppression. The empire soldiers, we often forget the importance of the empire soldiers. They often excluded the fact that how much contribution they give. I had these really interesting people say when they go to the war graves, they see all these these graves from people all over the world. Britain's contribution is important. Britain had a key contribution, but the fact is that it was a world war won by so many parts of the world. That is the whole point. And so we cannot say that we beat the Germans. We cannot say that we liberated France. We cannot say that we liberated Belgium. Just we.
We can say that the rest of them would not have been involved if we hadn't stood there in the first place, because no one would have been inviting the Indian soldiers across to Europe or any of those other great nations that you've mentioned, quite rightly. But without us there as the anchor, it wouldn't have happened. And we would not be free to make a decision about whether we're in Europe or out of Europe.
Okay, go on, Kate.
We would be in it, and we'd be in whatever the Third Reich had ever become. That's where we would be.
Go on, Kate.
It would have happened without all of these countries joined together, and we forget about the vital resistance of the occupied populations. They liberated themselves as well.
We don't forget about them. The point is that if we hadn't been there for them to galvanise around, it would not have happened. The French resistance would not have fought off.
All right, don't shout, Andy. Don't shout. Go on, Kate. Respond to what Andy's saying.
It would have happened. It simply would have happened. It would have happened. The invasion. We have to look here about how much we appeased Hitler initially. There was a heavy appeasement from Britain. If the World War would not have escalated in the way it had if we had cracked down much earlier. There are many faults in the British engagement with this. Yes, it would have happened without Britain. It simply would have done. There's no way of saying, yes, the British contribution was as important as everyone. The British sacrifice was incredible. Britain held firm. Britain was tough. But along this way, it was a world war. And saying that it is, and, obviously, what you're saying that Britain was important to it is not the same as saying we beat the Germans. And it's that you don't hear the argument that we hear over and over again is we beat the Germans. It is who do you think your film?
But Andy, you obviously, but Kate, Andy obviously sees a singularity about how Britain responded once the war was in full flow.
I think it was a group effort. It was a group activity, and we cannot say we liberated France and Belgium. It was a group liberation, and also we cannot undermine not just the people in Nazi Germany who were resisting, not just the people in Nazi occupied territories who were resisting, but the people. We have to look at those people who are resisting as well.
And can I ask, just a final thought, really, around Germany in particular, because there is still that we beat the Germans, which I think it's what prompted my conversation with you. Is I hear it so often when I talk to people on this programme. If Germany lost the war, they do say, don't they, that it won the peace, and now it's deemed to be, the driving force of the European Union, and stole a march on Britain and the rest of Europe, really, after the war, eventually, to set up an educational, industrial, technological growth that was unrivaled in Europe, possibly still is unrivaled in Europe. Is that what people mean when they say Germany won the peace?
That is what they mean when they say Germany won the peace. That is what they mean, that it progressed so very quickly. And it progressed from if you look at Depression-era Germany, it was in a terrible state of poverty. I mean, poverty was across Europe, particularly bad in the Great Depression in America, bad in Britain, but Germany was in a dire state, and we have to look at how much are the reparations imposed on Germany after the Treaty of Versailles agreed and encouraged by Britain, encouraged this extreme poverty, which in itself is a marvellous breeding ground for fascism. But Germany did win the peace, and Germany did create, and this is a different Germany. That's why because bring up the war is, I think, so distressing to so many Germans, because they see themselves, they are a peaceful country. They hate what had gone on before. They hate Nazism. Most of those are dead, but they hate every part of it. And it's very, very distressing and very cruel, I think, to these Germans who feel so guilty about it and so wrong about it, to constantly bring it up.
Although we do see a kind of resurgence, not huge yet, but significant resurgence of far right politics in Germany, don't we, with the successes electorally of the ADF recently? But that's a whole other conversation for another day. Kate Williams, great to have you on. Professor Kate Williams, historian, author and TV presenter.
Enders' intervention is a classic example of the sort of Teutonic arrogance which is one of the reasons why many people voted to leave the European Union. If he thinks because he runs a big company, he can bully British MPs how to vote, he's going to be sorely mistaken. My father, Reginald Francois, was a D-Day veteran. He never submitted to bullying by any German, neither will his son. So if Mr. Enders is watching, that's what he can do with his letter.
Silly, right? His nationality...
No, it's not silly.
Hang on just a minute, you've said your bit. His nationality, for me, to be honest, doesn't matter. Partly because, in the end, all the EU people you speak to, but also their businesses, see this as damage limitation. Yeah. Believe it or not, they don't want to bully us, Mark. This is going to be... Hang on just a minute. This is going to be bad for them, and it's going to be bad for us. And I think if we go back to this kind of rhetoric from the 1940s... Look, my grandfather... Hang on just a minute. My grandfather prosecuted the Nazis at Nuremberg, right? Yeah. We don't want to go back to that kind of space. We don't want to go back to that kind of sentiment and attitude. We don't need to go there. And these guys employ hundreds of thousands of British people providing their jobs. We want to know what they think.
Timothy's in York. Timothy, why do you think they didn't tell the local MPs and council what they were doing?
Oh, I really think that's not a big issue at all. This whole M26 car park thing, and any divorce, it's always going to be messy. It was never going to be straightforward, but it's a step in the direction that this country needs to go in.
It was going to be really, really easy. You remember?
No, it wasn't. And
but all the Brexit campaigners said it would be really, really easy. I mean, don't make me read you all the quotes again.
Okay, but that's not why I voted Leave, and it's not why any of the people
free trade
I know
agreement that we will
Leave.
have to do with the European Union should be one of the easiest in human history. That's Liam Fox. John Redwood, getting out of the EU can be quick and easy. The UK holds most of the cards in any negotiation. That's John Redwood. Here's Farage. To me, Brexit's easy. Here's Gerard Batten. Trade relations with the EU could be sorted out in an afternoon over a cup of coffee. Here's David Davis. We can do deals with our trading partners and we can do them quickly. I would expect the new Prime Minister on the 9th of September, that's 2016, to immediately trigger a large round of global trade deals.
The World Trade
Boris Johnson, everybody is suddenly wrangling about the terrors of the world outside. Actually, there are plenty of people who now think the cost of getting out would be virtually nil and the cost of staying in would be very high. Michael Gove, we have 4 years, more or less, between now and the date of the next election. We can easily conclude a new settlement with the EU in that period. Douglas Carswell, I think we could very easily get a better trade deal than we have.
I've never refuted this.
At the moment,
are we having a discussion?
Paul Nuttall, it will be easy to negotiate a trade deal, and of course it's in the European Union's interest, just as it is. No, I'm just pointing out that when you said nobody said it would be easy, you were mistaken.
No, I'm not on about politicians, career liars like yourself. I mean, you're pushing an agenda, they're pushing an agenda.
Right, okay. So you don't think that any of those people influenced votes? You don't think any of those influenced votes?
You're not a man of the people, James. You live in a nice area which hasn't had any of the negative effects of globalism, of immigration.
Okay, so
you don't
why
live
do you?
in the real world,
so,
James.
mate, we're talking
You
about.
earn what I earn in a month.
We're talking about a 20 kilometre. Well, mate, it's not my fault, is it?
No, it's
that
not.
I've done well and you've done badly. Why are you taking it out on me?
I'm not.
So talk to me. Okay, let's pretend that I'm the most important person in the room, and you tell me now how Brexit's going to improve your life.
Okay, it's a long-term strategy, how I see it. I want people on lower skilled jobs.
Is that you?
No, it's not me.
So how's it going to improve your life? Because you've insisted on talking about mine, so now I'm interested in how it's going to improve your life, Timothy.
In many ways, I don't.
Well, let's count. Let me count the ways.
It's more to do with how I see the world and how I see myself and how I see countries. And you clearly.
So how's it going to improve your life then?
I won't have to deal with all of the people like you.
So you think somehow Brexit will involve me retiring, and you don't have to deal with me, Timothy. What model radio do you have?
I don't have a radio. I use my phone.
Okay, so if you know the button on the top left of your keypad on your phone, if you just turn it off, then you don't have to deal with me.
This is what I wanted to speak about.
You don't have to deal with me at all.
I wanted to ask you why you're a globalist and why.
What does globalist mean, Timothy? What does globalist mean?
It means all different people living in all different countries. It means no trade barriers. It means no borders. It means terrible things.
Right. Should we go back? Should we go back? Because this is a bit tricky for you, obviously. So let's go back to how your life is going to improve, Timothy.
My life will improve by not having bloody rude neighbours.
Yes.
My whole town.
But you're incredibly rude.
The last 10 years.
You're incredibly
the last 10
rude.
years has seen my town change completely.
Yes. What town is that?
York.
York. So after Brexit, what are your neighbours going to do?
Well, personally, I would like to see a lot of the Europeans here that are doing jobs such as labouring, warehouse work. I would like to see them go home.
Okay.
It's not because I dislike them as people.
It's been promised that they won't have to. It's been promised that they won't have to.
I know. But
so how is your life going to improve?
It's more of a moral point for me. It's like
the moral point you just made is that we should discriminate against people based upon their origins rather than their conduct or their character.
I think that we should put natives first.
Right. Okay. So how would that improve your life? What is it that you have been prevented from doing because you're a native?
I haven't been prevented. You're not seeing the point on purpose.
No. Well, tell me what the point is.
The point is that our country has changed a lot since 2004-3.
Yes, and you think for the worse, and I'm asking.
I think it's changed for the worse.
Yes, I know that.
Yeah.
I've understood that bit. It's the rest I'm struggling with. So how is your life going to? How is your life going to improve?
My life will improve if our country starts going back to how it was. That's how
it was when?
When I was younger.
Oh, how old are you now?
EU invasion, before
how old are you now?
Migrant crisis.
Yes, how old are you now?
Mainland Europe.
Yes, Brexit isn't going to stop refugees fleeing Syria, but how old are you now?
They're not refugees, and actually, if you...
Okay, Timothy.
If you actually...
How old are you now, Timothy? How old are you now?
That's besides the point.
No, it isn't, because you said you want to go back to how things were when you were young, so I'm wondering how old you are now.
I'm 35.
So what year are you thinking was the halcyon days, the sort of rose-tinted memories that you have?
No, that's the thing, James. What do you see about the future?
So you were born in 1983?
No.
So
James,
what year are you thinking of when you say you want to... No, Timothy, you're talking about the past. I've already talked about the future. I asked you how your life was going to improve, and you couldn't tell me. And you said your life was going to improve by going back to what it was like when you were a child. So we're talking about the past because that's what you want the future to be. You can't change horses now. So what year are you thinking of when you say I want to go back to that?
I'd like to go back to the 90s, ideally, personally.
Which bit of the 90s?
All of the 90s.
So you want to go back to all of the 90s? What do you think? No, Timothy, it doesn't work.
If we remained, I'll tell you what the future is.
Okay, mate.
The euro will collapse.
Yes.
The debt crisis in the South Med. All of those countries are being terrorised economically by Germany.
Right. Why are they all seeing?
Have you been to Greece recently?
Yes, I was there
recently?
I was there about 3 months ago. Why do you think all these countries?
Broken.
Well, hang on. When were you last in Greece, Timothy?
I was in Greece 2 months ago.
Okay. Which
July.
bit? Which bit, Timothy?
I was on the island of Corfu.
Well, you were on a holiday in Greece.
Yes.
Okay. And this is your evidence of a country that's collapsing.
No, you fool. That's not what I'm saying. Have you not seen the state of all of those countries? They're just not good, are they? They're not on the same standard as us, and they're being held back by Germany.
Why has support for the European Union in all of these countries gone up since the Brexit vote, do you think?
According to whom?
Okay. Let's try another one then. In what ways do you think your life will improve, apart from your optimistic belief that there might be fewer foreigners in York?
It's not entirely that.
No, that's why I said what else?
I just don't want to be involved in Europe. I don't see myself as a European.
You just went to Corfu for your holiday. You can't get much more involved than that.
And I lived in Australia.
Well done.
And I've travelled Asia.
Well
and
done.
I love those countries.
Doesn't that make you a globalist?
No, it doesn't. It makes me a traveller. It makes me an Englishman.
Okay.
That's what the English do. We travel.
All right, Timothy. You know you voted to stop English people having freedom of movement across 27 EU countries.
I would never want to work or live in Europe.
Okay.
I would only like to live
that's fine.
or work in English-speaking ex-colonies, such as Canada, Australia,
But you hate it here.
New Zealand. I don't hate it here.
Well, you have spent most of this call describing the country in the most negative and pejorative of terms. You don't sound like a person who's very happy to be here.
It's terrible.
Okay.
It's terrible.
Because of all the foreigners.
No, because of everything.
Well, what else apart from the foreigners? When you walk down the street, Timothy, we need to calm it. Okay. I'm going to try again to examine some words that have come out of your mouth. When you walk down the street, it's terrible, it's just terrible, but you're not talking about the foreigners. What are you talking about?
I'm talking about the state of everything.
Yes, well, so for example?
For example, the state of the roads, funnily enough.
So you think that Brexit is going to fix potholes?
It's about...
Timothy, mate, go and have a cup of tea. Thank you very much for calling. I'm sorry you're so cross about everything, and I'm sorry you see me as personally representative of all the problems that have rendered your life so unhappy and so unsatisfactory. But please trust me when I tell you, it's going to get worse.
You, sir, in the white shirt, yes.
Yeah. If you happen to look out in the car park here, you'll see virtually all the cars are German or French. So I think they need us as much as we need them.
OK. And you, sir, in the very front.
Ian is talking such negative nonsense. It is ridiculous. We are leaving the EU. There's a meeting tomorrow in Cabinet. Things will be sorted. As Matthew said, some sort of compromise will have to ensue, and it will. You wait till tomorrow evening. It'll all be agreed. Now, it will be agreed. It will be agreed. The fact is, we are moving forward out of the EU, and that's a damn good thing for our country. And Pretty is talking a lot of sense.
Richard has pointed out to Clive there. Why don't you get your heads together with Labour and work with the Conservatives? We voted to leave. Yeah. Let us leave, all right? That is the answer. Now, the other thing is, right, why should the EU dictate to us, a very big nation, of what we can do or what we can't do? I think that is a load of rubbish.
Who's doing the leaving?
Yeah?
Who is doing the leaving?
We are leaving, yeah, and it's the best thing that'll ever happen to the United Kingdom. I can tell you that.
All right? The woman in the front row here.
When I drive into Exeter, I come through a trading estate which has one road with 11 garages that's supplied by Europe. Are you telling me that they're going to stop doing that? That's a load of rubbish. We get a good deal because they will want it.
Having been around the first referendum and voting on it, it's like an echo chamber. I'm listening to everything that took place then. Then we were told, common market, oh yes, our trade will be superb, we're going to get on with it, we can sell our products, and we've got Europe to go at. Now, after being asset stripped, this country, which was the biggest manufacturing industry in the world, Railways, shipping, airplanes, you name it, we built it. Electric engines that were on the Panama Canal in the 1800s and were still there 100 years later. And they couldn't put one back that to buy in Japan.
Okay.
English electric and the likes of that were lost.
And you, sir, next. Woman there on the left there in blue. Yes. You.
Thank you. I am really fed up of all the arguing. Nothing is getting really sorted out. We are a democracy. The House of Lords is not elected. Our MPs are, and they're there and always have been to carry out the will of the people. For me, all this bickering has been said is going on too long, and I cannot see why they just don't get their act together, get rid of the negativity that I have picked up here. They should really not talk about failure of these talks that they're having. It's about having a positive outlook going into it. Churchill would not have put up with all this, and I am beginning to think, and no matter people may laugh, but Donald Trump was able to go and get an agreement without the will of his parliament, so to speak. And I'm beginning to think that possibly someone like that is needed here to take charge and sort it out.
The woman with spectacles in the second row from the back there.
I absolutely agree with Richard Madeley. What this country needs is Winston Churchill moment. It needs our government to stand up for the democratic right of what the people voted for and get us fully out of Europe.
It's up there.
Not at all.
What do you make of it? What do you make of it? All right, you.
Sorry, me.
Yeah, go on.
We're the United Kingdom of Great Britain and Northern Ireland. We voted to leave, so let's pull up anchor and sail away, okay? And then we'll be able to sort ourselves out. And then Europe, will look to us.
It's not an Enya song. I mean, Sail Away is a lovely song, but you need to go somewhere, so do you know what I mean?
And you, sir, at the back, in the second row from the back there.
With the disruption we had during the First and Second World Wars, would a no-deal Brexit really be that bad? When you think of all the supply ships are getting blown out of the Atlantic, and we've worried about this no-deal. We got through that. I'm sure we can get through it with a no-deal.